On a warm August morning in 2016, the Thompson family packed their SUV for what should have been a carefree camping trip in the Sequoia National Forest. They set up their tent, texted relatives that they had arrived safely, and even prepared lunch at their picnic table. But when rangers checked on the site days later, it was frozen in time. Food still on the table, personal belongings untouched, their car parked neatly beside the tent. The only thing missing was the family. For weeks, helicopters circled the skies, search dogs combed the woods, and detectives pieced together every trace of their lives. But no bodies were ever found. No signs of struggle. Just silence. Had they fallen victim to the wilderness? Had someone lured them away? Or was there a secret they were hiding all along? For 8 long years, the Thompson disappearance became one of the most baffling modern mysteries, until a drone flying over a remote ravine uncovered something no one was prepared to see. What investigators found would not only rewrite the family's story, but expose a truth far more unsettling than anyone had imagined. Before we dive deeper, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think really happened to the Thompson family? Did they run, were they taken, or was something far more sinister at play? Drop your theory in the comments, because I'll be featuring the most interesting ones in future videos. And if you enjoy uncovering chilling mysteries like this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you'll never miss the next story. It was a Sunday morning, August 14, 2016, when the Thompson family prepared for their annual summer getaway. For them, these camping trips were more than tradition. They were an escape, a chance to disconnect from the noise of city life in Sacramento and reconnect with each other under the trees of Sequoia National Forest. David Thompson, 42, loaded the back of their blue Honda Pilot with military precision. As a software engineer, he was used to details, but today he seemed heavier than usual. His eyes darted toward the street as if expecting someone to be watching. He forced a smile whenever his daughter looked his way, but Jennifer, his wife, noticed. He always did. Jennifer, 39, was the calm of the family. A patient elementary school teacher who believed in routine, kindness, and finding beauty in small things. She double-checked the cooler, packed sandwiches, and carefully folded Emma's favorite blanket. She thought David's tension was just work stress. After all, he had been pulling long nights at the office. Their daughter, Emma, was just 12 but carried the excitement of a child much younger. She skipped between the car and the driveway, clutching her pink backpack stuffed with sketchbooks, snacks, and a camera she loved to use on hikes. "Are we going to the waterfall again, Dad?" she asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. David hesitated for a second before nodding. "Of course, kiddo. Just like every year." At exactly 10:30 a.m., the family waved goodbye to their neighbor, who remembered the moment clearly because Emma had shouted, "See you in a week." The Honda pulled away, the sunlight catching the rearview mirror for a split second before it disappeared down the street. That was the last time anyone in their neighborhood saw the Thompsons. 4 hours later, their SUV was logged entering Sequoia National Forest. At 2:47 p.m., Jennifer texted her sister Lisa a simple message: "We made it. Setting up now." It was short, ordinary, the kind of message that would usually be followed by pictures of the campsite, maybe a family selfie by the fire. But no more messages came. For the next 8 years, that one text would become a timestamp carved into the memory of everyone who searched for them. Because everything after that moment was silence. At 2:47 p.m., Jennifer's last message, "We made it. Setting up now," was sent. After that, nothing. No calls. No pictures. No updates. Days later, when rangers checked the campground, the Thompsons' site looked frozen in time. Their tent still stood, food was neatly packed, and even David's wallet sat untouched on the picnic table. But the family? They were gone. No tracks leading away. No sign of a struggle. Not even a clue of which direction they might have gone. It was as if the forest had opened its jaws and swallowed them whole. When the Thompsons checked into Pine Ridge Campground, everything seemed normal. Families were scattered across the sites, children were roasting marshmallows, and hikers came and went along the nearby trails. Site 47 was tucked at the far edge, bordered by towering redwoods that gave it both privacy and shadows. Several campers later remembered small details. A couple from Arizona recalled seeing Emma near the creek, crouched down with her camera, photographing frogs. Another camper noticed Jennifer neatly laying out food and supplies with the calm, deliberate touch of someone who had done this 100 times. And one man parked a few sites away remembered David. He wasn't setting up chairs or unpacking bags. He was standing still, arms crossed, scanning the woods like a soldier on guard duty. At 2:47 p.m. Jennifer texted her sister Lisa, "We made it. Setting up now." It was routine, simple, almost forgettable. Yet in hindsight it would become a haunting timestamp. The last known proof that the Thompsons were alive and well. 3 days later, when the campground manager came to inspect Site 47, the scene that greeted him was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. The tent stood tall, zipped shut as if waiting for its owners to crawl inside. The cooler was packed with fresh food, ice still partially frozen inside. A half-eaten sandwich rested on the picnic table, now swarmed with ants. Emma's pink backpack leaned against a folding chair, a page of her sketchbook sticking out, showing a rough pencil drawing of the creek she had been at earlier. David's leather wallet, fat with cash and IDs, sat untouched on the bench. Jennifer's sweatshirt was folded neatly on top of her sleeping bag inside the tent. Even Emma's sneakers, small and worn from years of use, were tucked under her blanket. It was as if the family had vanished in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, leaving everything behind, everything except themselves. Within hours the site was swarming with search teams. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Helicopters circled overhead. Volunteers lined up, sweeping the trails inch by inch. The dogs quickly caught onto something. A trail leading down Devil's Canyon, a dangerous and uneven path that was strangely one of Emma's favorites. For almost a mile the scent was strong. But then just before the edge of a ravine it disappeared. As if the family had walked straight into thin air. Searchers rappelled down the cliffs, scoured the creek bed and picked through the brush, but no evidence appeared. Not a single footprint. Not a scrap of clothing. No broken branches to suggest a fall. Nothing. Investigators grew increasingly unsettled. In the wilderness, disappearances are rarely this clean. Normally there are clues, gear scattered by accident, a trail of panic, even blood. But here it was the silence that was most haunting. It was as though the Thompsons had stood up from their picnic, stepped into the forest, and been swallowed whole. And then came the detail that made everything darker. When investigators pulled David's phone records, they noticed something strange. His last outgoing call had been made from the canyon, at 3:11 p.m. the same day they arrived. It had lasted just 14 seconds. No one knows who he called. And the number? It was erased from his phone's history. The abandoned campsite was chilling enough. But that one call from David's phone, just minutes after Jennifer's final text, hinted at a secret no one was prepared to uncover. As search teams exhausted every inch of the forest, detectives shifted focus. If the Thompsons weren't in the woods, maybe the answers lay in their lives back home. What they uncovered was far from the picture-perfect family neighbors remembered. At first, David Thompson seemed like the least suspicious person imaginable. A 42-year-old software engineer, stable job, stable marriage, no history of crime or violence. His company, Tech Secure Solutions, specialized in cybersecurity and advanced tracking software. His employers described him as quiet, reliable. But in the weeks leading up to the camping trip, something had changed. Co-workers remembered David pacing the office late at night, staring at his monitor with a kind of haunted focus. He had started asking odd questions about client lists and system vulnerabilities, questions that weren't part of his job. One colleague recalled David muttering that some clients weren't who they claimed to be. Detectives dug deeper and discovered something more alarming. In the month before the family vanished, David had made several unusual cash withdrawals. Always just under $10,000, always at different branches, totaling nearly $6,000. Enough to raise eyebrows, but not enough to trigger mandatory bank reporting. Where was that money going? Investigators never found out. Then there was his internet history. Searches that painted a disturbing picture. How to disappear without a trace. Off-grid survival shelters. Untraceable currency. Most damning of all, his browser showed multiple visits to cryptocurrency exchanges. Strange for a man who had never shown interest in digital finance before. Jennifer's family added more to the growing puzzle. Her sister, Lisa, told police that Jennifer had recently confided in her. She had noticed David taking late-night phone calls in the backyard, speaking in hushed tones. Sometimes he would hang up abruptly the moment she appeared. When she pressed him about it, he claimed it was just work, but Jennifer wasn't convinced. In the weeks before the trip, she had even told her sister, "Something's not right with him. I don't know what, but I feel it." The picture forming was no longer one of a happy family suddenly swallowed by the forest. It was a family carrying secrets. Secrets tied to David's work, his money, and his silence. And then investigators uncovered the detail that turned suspicion into dread. David's company, Secure Solutions, wasn't just selling generic software. They had contracts with corporations, government agencies, and one particular client, Mountain View Logistics. On paper, a shipping company. In reality, a front tied to human trafficking investigations. David had access to sensitive data. And in the weeks before the trip, he had been snooping into client files he had no clearance for. Had he uncovered something? Had someone found out? Was the trip to Sequoia an innocent family getaway, or a desperate attempt to escape something closing in? The forest hadn't given up its answers, but David's digital trail had. And the deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became. The Thompsons hadn't just vanished. They were caught in something much bigger, and far more dangerous. With little evidence from the forest and a growing stack of questions about David's work, investigators and armchair detectives alike turned to speculation. The Thompson disappearance quickly became one of California's most puzzling cold cases. Almost immediately, multiple theories emerged. Some grounded in logic, others bordering on the bizarre. Some believed the worst, that David, under mysterious stress, had turned on his family. He had the knowledge, the skills, and the opportunity. If he had intended to harm them, the forest could have hidden any trace. But friends and family struggled to reconcile that theory with what they knew about him. A kind, methodical man who loved his wife and daughter. Others speculated a different kind of tragedy. Perhaps the Thompsons had fallen victim to the wilderness itself. Sequoia National Forest was beautiful, yes, but dangerous. Sudden storms, steep ravines, and wildlife could overwhelm even the most careful hikers. Some theorists pointed to Devil's Canyon Trail, where search dogs had lost the family's scent, as the possible site of a fatal accident. But if that were the case, why leave behind wallets, keys, backpacks, and Emma's beloved pink backpack? Then there were darker, stranger possibilities. Could the family have been caught up in a cult? Or forced into witness protection due to David's mysterious work with clients? Some online forums suggested they had been abducted for reasons tied to David's job, an idea that was dismissed by some investigators as wild speculation, yet couldn't be ignored completely given the oddities in his professional life. For the public, the theories were endless. A sighting of a family resembling the Thompsons at a farmer's market in Oregon led to weeks of investigation, only to prove false. A man claiming to have seen David working at a construction site in Arizona under a new identity turned out to be mistaken. Most heartbreaking was a call from a young woman in Colorado claiming to be Emma, now 19, saying she had escaped captivity. Medical and forensic testing quickly confirmed she was not Emma. Each lead brought hope, then disappointment. Each theory stirred new anxiety in Jennifer's and David's families, prolonging their grief, guilt, and frustration. Even law enforcement hit dead ends. The initial search of Pine Ridge had been thorough but incomplete. Dangerous terrain, ravines, and unstable cliffs limited how close investigators could safely get. And with David's phone and financial activity raising more questions than answers, detectives found themselves chasing shadows. By the third year, even the most dedicated investigators began to quietly fear the worst, that the family had vanished entirely, leaving no trail, no explanation, and no chance of return. Yet a nagging suspicion remained. Something didn't add up. The scene at Site 47, David's recent work files, and his sudden, unusual financial activity suggested a different story, one that had gone unnoticed for years. For years, everyone had been looking in the wrong places. Theories abounded, but the truth was still hiding, waiting for someone to find it. And when it finally emerged, it would be revealed by a tool no one expected. A drone flying over a remote ravine. Years had passed. Investigators, volunteers, and families had all but given up. The Thompson case had become a cautionary tale, a story of disappearance and unanswered questions. But on March 15, 2024, a routine wildlife survey would unexpectedly rewrite everything. Dr. James Patterson, a seasoned wildlife researcher, was flying his high-tech drone over Sequoia National Forest. His mission was simple: track eagle nests without disturbing the birds. But this section of the forest, deep, rugged, and nearly impossible to access on foot, was unexplored. The drone's thermal imaging cameras scanned every ridge, ravine, and shadowy hollow with precision. At 2:30 p.m., something unusual appeared on the feed. "It can't be," Dr. Patterson muttered, zooming in on the screen. There, under a thick canopy of pine and oak, was a heat signature unlike anything natural. The patterns were too regular, too deliberate. Lines, corners, small rectangular shapes. Evidence of human construction. Patterson's pulse quickened. This ravine was almost completely inaccessible. The walls dropped sharply over 100 feet with jagged rocks and dense forest lining the bottom. No trails led here and casual hikers would never stumble across it. Yet the drone's imaging left no doubt. Someone had built a shelter. He immediately recorded coordinates, zoomed in closer, and carefully documented every angle. The structure below was sophisticated. Solar panels glinted through the treetops, faint but steady smoke suggested cooking fires, and shadows hinted at makeshift walls and sleeping areas. Patterson knew he had to call the authorities. Sheriff's Deputy Michael Torres arrived 3 days later, along with a specialized search and rescue team. The descent into the ravine was treacherous, ropes and harnesses barely keeping them safe as they lowered themselves into the dense forest below. And then they saw it. Hidden beneath a thick layer of branches and natural camouflage was a complete shelter system, built into a natural cave formation. There were 3 distinct sleeping areas, each personalized with items that clearly belonged to different people. Books were stacked neatly: classic literature, science textbooks, and dozens of journals. One journal, worn from years of use, bore the name Emma Thompson. Deputies opened the journal carefully. The first entry read, August 16, 2016, Day 2. Dad says we can't go back. Mom keeps crying but she's trying to hide it from me. The entries chronicled 7 years of life in isolation. Daily routines, lessons learned, survival strategies, and the emotional toll of being hidden from the world were all meticulously recorded. Investigators slowly realized the truth. The Thompson family hadn't been killed or kidnapped. They had been hiding. David's previous work at Tech Secure Solutions had inadvertently placed his family in grave danger. One of his clients, Mountain View Logistics, was revealed to be a human trafficking operation. David had discovered it, gathered evidence, and when threats escalated against his family, he took the only action he could: vanish completely, creating shelters so remote that modern technology, search teams, and even helicopters couldn't locate them. The Thompson family's survival was a testament to ingenuity, resilience, and the harrowing choices one parent would make to protect his loved ones. Every journal entry, every carefully constructed corner of the shelter, was evidence of a life spent in hiding, safe but stolen from the world. The journal entries answered the greatest mystery: they were alive. But one chilling question remained. If they had been hiding all these years, what had been stalking them from the shadows? And were the people who had threatened them truly gone, or still out there watching? After disappearing into the forest, the Thompsons' lives transformed completely. Gone were birthdays with friends, trips to school, and casual weekends at the park. In their place was a world dictated by survival, secrecy, and constant vigilance. David Thompson had anticipated the dangers well in advance. Before the camping trip that would be their final departure from normal life, he had spent months studying off-grid survival, building detailed maps, and quietly assembling supplies. The shelter hidden in the ravine was no mere campsite. It was a self-sufficient fortress. Solar panels powered essential lighting and communication devices. Water was filtered from an underground spring, and carefully stocked food containers ensured they never went hungry. Jennifer Thompson became the glue holding the family together. With her teaching background, she began homeschooling Emma immediately. Lessons in math, science, and reading filled their days. But these were not normal lessons, they were punctuated by survival skills. Emma learned to purify water, repair solar panels, identify edible plants, and navigate the dense forest safely. Evenings were quiet, almost ritualistic. David checked perimeter traps, verified the solar panels, and maintained communication logs in case of emergencies. Jennifer read aloud from Emma's textbooks or journaled, helping Emma maintain a sense of normalcy. Emma, in turn, kept detailed journals documenting their lives. a bridge between childhood and the reality they now faced. Yet isolation came with a profound emotional cost. Jennifer often cried silently in the shelter's corner, mourning a life she could never reclaim. Emma's journal entries reveal moments of intense loneliness, wishing for friends, birthdays, and the small joys of ordinary life. David bore the weight of guilt daily. Every decision he had made to protect his family came at the cost of their freedom, their social lives, and the childhood Emma would never have. Despite the hardship, there were moments of profound connection. Thanksgiving in the shelter became a treasured tradition. Jennifer improvised meals with whatever supplies they had, and David told stories from his youth, from when he first met Jennifer. Laughter occasionally echoed through the ravine, a reminder that even in isolation, life persisted. Over the years, the family became experts in moving undetected. David carefully planned supply runs to distant towns, always choosing routes that minimized the chance of being seen. Emma documented their movements, learning the patterns of the forest, understanding the rhythms of nature, and becoming remarkably self-reliant for her age. But there was always an undercurrent of fear. Emma's journal entries mention nights when strange sounds in the forest made her father tense, his eyes scanning the shadows. Every unexpected human presence was a threat, every unknown footprint a potential danger. They were hidden but not entirely safe. The people who had once threatened them were still out there, and David knew that even a single slip could unravel everything. The forest became both sanctuary and prison. The Thompsons survived, yes, but survival came at a cost. A stolen childhood, lost friendships, and the constant tension of knowing the outside world could never truly be theirs again. Years of hiding had kept them safe, but the world outside was moving forward. And when the first clue finally emerged that the threat might be gone, would they even be ready to return, or had the forest changed them forever? After nearly 8 years in complete isolation, the Thompson family's hidden life was finally exposed. The breakthrough came not from luck, but from advanced technology and a relentless researcher. Dr. James Patterson's drone had captured the first concrete evidence of human presence in the unreachable ravine, a discovery that would change everything. Sheriff's Deputy Michael Torres and his team carefully navigated the treacherous descent into the ravine. What they found was beyond imagination. A fully functioning shelter system hidden with such precision that no prior search had detected it. Solar panels, water filtration, food storage, and meticulously organized living spaces revealed the ingenuity of a family surviving against impossible odds. The centerpiece of the discovery was Emma's journal. Each page told a story that no one had anticipated. A life spent in isolation full of learning, struggle, and resilience. The first entry, dated just 2 days after their disappearance, expressed confusion and fear. Later entries chronicled survival skills, daily routines, and the psychological toll of being cut off from the world. Investigators realized the truth. The Thompson family had not been killed. They had not run away carelessly. They had been hiding intentionally, protected by David's knowledge, resourcefulness, and courage. David's role became clear. His software, originally designed for security and tracking, had been exploited by a human trafficking ring. When he uncovered the criminal use of his work, he took action to protect his family, disappearing entirely to keep them safe. Jennifer's quiet strength and Emma's adaptability had kept the family alive, physically and emotionally, for nearly a decade. As news spread, reactions were intense and emotional. Jennifer's sister, Lisa, broke down during her first televised interview. "For 8 years I blamed myself. I thought they were gone forever. And now I know they were alive, surviving, hiding to protect others. I can't describe the relief and the heartbreak all at once." Former neighbors and the Sacramento community were stunned. Mrs. Liam, who had waved goodbye to them on that final morning, said, "David seemed like such an ordinary man. We never imagined the danger he was facing, or the lengths he went to protect his family." Even the volunteers who had combed the forest for weeks felt a mix of anger and awe. Jake Morrison, the coordinator of the original search effort, reflected, "We searched miles of forest, risking our lives, and all that time, they were safe, hidden, and surviving. I'll admit, part of me is angry, but mostly I'm grateful they're alive." Federal authorities verified Emma's journal entries, confirming that the family's life in hiding was not a fabrication. The human trafficking ring that had threatened them had been dismantled thanks to David's evidence. The family's disappearance, though agonizing for those left behind, had ultimately helped protect countless others. Yet even with the public revelation, the Thompsons remained cautious. Weeks passed and no immediate contact was made. Though safe, the fear lingered. Some threats might still exist. Emma's final journal entries hinted at this constant vigilance, underscoring that while the family could return to society, they were forever changed by what they had endured. The Thompson family had survived, protected countless lives, and finally proven they were alive. But as they emerged from the shadows, one question remained. Could they ever truly reclaim the normal life they had been forced to abandon? Or was the world outside now as dangerous as the shadows they had left behind? The world had finally learned the truth. The Thompsons were alive. Yet their re-emergence was met with a complex mix of relief, awe, and lingering questions. Communities, investigators, and families who had followed the case for nearly a decade felt an overwhelming sense of closure, but also an appreciation for the unimaginable choices the family had made. Jennifer's sister, Lisa, spoke openly on national television, her voice heavy with emotion. "For 8 years I thought they were gone forever. I blamed myself for not understanding the warning signs. Now I know they were alive, hiding, surviving. Their courage saved them, and countless others." Emma's classmates, now in their 20s, gathered online to share memories and express hope for her return. Old friendships, long paused, reignited. Social media buzzed with support, curiosity, and admiration for a family who had sacrificed everything to protect innocent lives. Even volunteers who had risked their lives searching the forest felt a bittersweet relief. Jake Morrison, coordinator of the original search, reflected, "We combed miles of wilderness, never imagining they were safe the whole time. It's hard not to feel a little frustration, but mostly I feel gratitude. Their survival, it's extraordinary." Authorities verified Emma's journals, confirming the family's account of years in isolation. David's heroic decision to disappear had dismantled a dangerous trafficking network. His software, once a tool for harm, became a key instrument in saving countless lives. Jennifer's dedication, David's strategy, and Emma's resilience were celebrated, not just for survival, but for the lives their actions indirectly protected. Yet even in this newfound recognition, caution remained. Weeks passed without the Thompsons stepping into public life. They had emerged from hiding, but the shadows that had stalked them were not entirely gone. Emma's journals hinted at ongoing vigilance, a constant awareness that the outside world could still carry danger. The world they had once known was no longer safe, no longer predictable. Still, hope endured. The story of the Thompsons became more than a mystery. It became a testament to courage, family, and the quiet heroism of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. Jennifer and David had given up everything familiar, their careers, their social lives, their sense of normalcy, but in doing so they had preserved life. Emma had lost her childhood, but gained resilience, knowledge, and an unbreakable bond with her parents. Together they emerged not just as survivors, but as a family whose story would inspire, haunt, and educate for years to come. The world knew they were alive, but were the threats truly gone? Could the Thompsons finally reclaim a life beyond the shadows, or would the ghosts of their past always follow? One thing was certain, their story was far from over. As the story of the Thompson family comes to light, their courage and sacrifice leave us with more questions than answers. What would you do if you were in their shoes? Could you survive years in isolation to protect your loved ones, or would fear take over? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your theories, your emotions, and your take on this incredible story. If you found this story as gripping as we did, make sure to hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe for more real-life mysteries, shocking disappearances, and unbelievable survival stories. Don't forget to turn on notifications. You won't want to miss our next story that dives deep into a mystery no one could explain. Until now.